in whatever we learn, whatever we hear, discuss, may we be able to apply, implement as much as possible in our practice, in our everyday life. Okay. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent, destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfect, fully awakened being, perfect knowledge and in good conduct. So God, the Lord of the world, supreme God of human beings, became teacher of God and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent, destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent, destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfect and fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct. Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme God of human beings, to be tamed, teacher of God's human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent, destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering, and go for it. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent, destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, Lord of the world, supreme gods of human beings, to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the complete and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent, destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering, go for refuge. Sa chi pe ge chung shin me to da re ra le shi yin de gen ba de sang ge shin du mi de u wa do kun nama da shin so I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Soke Sonam La, Chanchu Badu Dane Kat, Dagi Shushe Gibe Sonam, Dola Penje Sangye Duba, Sangye Chodang Soke Sonam La, Chanchu Badu Dane Kat, Dagi Shushe Gibe Sonam, Dola Penje Sangye Duba. So I think since we have been we have had some what I call gap in between, so maybe I might want to just kind of summarize a little bit what we have already kind of discussed. So we talk, the subject of the discussions has been the three principal aspects of the path, and by following particular text by Lama Tsongkhapa, and the three principal aspects of the path, as we mentioned before, are renunciation, bodhicitta, and the view. And so in terms of each of them, then, why we need to generate the renunciation to start with, because without renunciation, then, we'll be attached to the samsara, and then we will not be able to get out of samsara. And therefore, our practice to attain liberation becomes just a word, not really coming from our heart, until we have the renunciations. So therefore, that's why we need to generate renunciation in order to really work, really dedicate our practice towards liberation, towards the freedom from the samsara and the sufferings. and the cause of the samsara and suffering. That is the karma and the delusions, and then basically that is why we need to generate the renunciation, and then how to generate the renunciations, so then by meditating on precious human rebirth and impermanent, then trying to overcome the attachment to the pleasure of this life, so because we are attached to samsara, either attached to this life or attached in the future lives within the samsara. And so therefore, in order to encounter the attachment towards the comfort and pleasure of this life, then we try to meditate on precious human rebirth and impermanent in general, and especially that impermanent. And through that, then one can overcome that. And then in terms of, in order to overcome the attachment to the samsara in general, and the experience and the pleasure or comfort of the samsara in general, then we try to meditate on the nature of suffering in samsara, the fault and disadvantage of being in samsara, no matter where you are, as long as we're in samsara, it doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter who you are, we continue to be under the sufferings, any of those three sufferings, sometimes it's suffering of pain. When we are not in suffering of pain, we are in suffering of change. When we are not in suffering of change, then we are in the suffering of all pervasive. So basically, we are constantly experiencing one of those suffering all the time. And so therefore, if we do not want suffering, then if we want to, then meditating on the fault and shortcoming of the samsara. So that is how to cultivate the bodhicitta mind, not bodhicitta, sorry, the renunciation. Then in terms of how do we know that what's the measure, and how do we know we have generated renunciations? And then, as Lama Tsongkhapa say, you are not even very slightly attached to any of the samsaric experience, any of the samsaric pleasure, you have no attachment at all to any of the samsaric pleasure or samsaric experience, and day and night you only think of liberations. And when you have that kind of mind, spontaneously, when you have that kind of mind, effortlessly, day and night, then that is when one has generated the renunciations, the realization of renunciations. And then in terms of the second, the bodhicitta, why do we need to cultivate the bodhicitta mind? Then again, with the bodhicitta mind, even we have renunciations, then, if we don't have bodhicitta mind, then even we have the renunciation, whatever practice we engage into, whatever virtues we engage into, even though it become cause of nirvana or liberation, but it do not become cause to fully enlightenment. It do not become cause to enlightenment. So therefore one need to generate the bodhicitta mind. Once we have generated the bodhicitta mind, then whatever practice, whatever virtues we engage into, all of them become cause to fully enlightenment. It becomes cause to fully enlightenment. And because the whole ultimate purpose of our practice is to achieve that fully enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, including oneself. And so therefore, without the bodhicitta, then our practice can lead to individual liberation, but it cannot lead to fully enlightenment without the Bodhicitta mind. And that's why we need to generate the Bodhicitta mind. And in terms of how to generate the Bodhicitta mind, then, by either practicing meditating by any of those meditation techniques or the method, by following the 7-point of cause and effect method, or equalizing, exchanging self with others by following either of those method. And here, of course, Lama Tsongkhapa describe, certain situations, by seeing, all mother sentient beings, carried away by the four currents of the rivers, the four currents of birth, sickness, aging, and death. That, and not only they are being carried kind of by the current, but also by seeing that they are kind of caged into the net of, karma, very difficult to undo, so then it, not only they are being carried away, but they have been tied up into a net, so it becomes very difficult to free themselves, and not only free themselves in that way, but also imagine that they are, and thinking, that they are in the darkness, or the very darkness, in the darkness of the ignorance, so if it is not darkness, but again, someone might see it, and then they might try to help them, or they might shout, and someone might hear, and they might try to help them. But then when you are in a dark, and then nobody can see you, then again, it becomes difficult to help. And so by imagining, not only just imagining, it is just give an image, but in reality, it is true. We are carried about by those four currents of aging, sickness, birth, and death. We are tied by the karma, and difficult to undo it. And definitely we are kind of carried in such undo by the darkness of the ignorance, always. And so therefore, by seeing that, then try to generate a strong compassions, wanting to protect them, wanting to save them, wanting to save from all the suffering and cause of suffering, and the wish to lead them to fully enlightenment. And in order to do that, the wish to achieve the fully enlightenment, to be able to do that, and so that is generating Bodhicitta mind. So I think we kind of finish up to there. And then in the root text itself, it doesn't actually mention the measurement of generating Bodhicitta mind, unlike in the renunciations. But again, similarly, I don't remember exactly which sutra, but in Kamala Shila's the stage of meditation, first part, he mentioned that, and that has also been quoted in some of the Lamrim as well. It gives with the example. For example, if the mother has only child, precious only child, and that child fall into a fire pit, how much unbearable feeling the mother will have, unbearable feeling to see the child, the only child, precious only child, being in that fire pit, and unbearable by seeing the pain and suffering, the feeling of unbearable, and the wish to jump and free that person, the child, without any hesitations. Immediately, that kind of feeling you have, any kind of feeling, and that kind of feeling is just come naturally for that mother, effortlessly, naturally. It's not like the mother is trying to put effort to feel that way. Do you get it? It's just come effortlessly, naturally. In the same way, when you think of the pain and suffering of sentient beings, then feeling unbearable, or by seeing the pain and suffering of sentient beings, you feel unbearable, that the way the mother feels for the child in that situation, so you feel incredible, unbearable, and the strong wish, naturally, spontaneously, to free them immediately without any hesitation. If there's any way that you can save them, if there's any way you can help them, if there's any way you can benefit them, the wish to help and save, protect, and help benefit, when you have that. And then in order to that, then when you realize that we are handicapped now because of not enough wisdom, not enough skillful means, and so forth. And then the wish to achieve enlightenment comes. I wish I could be, then we have the wish I could have all the wisdom, I could have all the skillful means, I can have all the power to help and benefit and to protect them. So when we feel that very strongly, then we realize only if we can achieve fully enlightenment, then we will be able to do that. Then the wish to achieve enlightenment come very naturally, very spontaneously, driven by that unbearable compassions, by seeing the suffering and pain of others, that by seeing that, it gives you unbearable feeling and compassion towards them. With that compassion, then you feel like, that you need to achieve fully enlightenment so that you can protect them, you can save them with all the skills, all the power, all the means, all the wisdom. And then the wish to achieve that enlightenment come again, spontaneously, naturally, effortlessly. When we have that, then that is when we have generated the bodhicitta realizations. Okay, that is when we know that we have generated both. But of course, before we reach to that effortless state, first we have to train with the effort, like everything else. For example, when you have problem with your, right hand, because you have pain, you have some shoulder. If you are to use a left hand, in my cases, I don't know how to use my left hand, whether it's brushing or eating, it will require effort, it will require effort. But if you train slowly, you can do it without any effort, just like I can do with the left hand effortlessly, And so, but just like that, in physical, things that we are not used to, we train. And many of our habits are like that too, many of our habits. At the very beginning, when we try to make certain habit, which we are not used to, we have to put a lot of effort. Sometimes we forget, we have to remind ourselves. Sometimes we remember, sometimes we forget, but we keep on doing that. And slowly, then it becomes effortless. Then you don't have to remind, like just a small example, brushing, very simple, when we were young, of course, in our village, there is no brushing. Yeah? There's no toothbrush. Nobody really brush in those times. Of course, maybe now it has changed. But when I came to Kopan, went to the monastery, then we were given a toothpaste, toothbrush, and then we used to brush, and we were trained to brush every morning. So slowly that you become very used to it, very used to it. And morning you wake up, you just brush without any thinking, you just go and brush. That has become your habit. It's kind of effortless. You don't have to remind, you don't have to kind of push yourself, you just go like that. But I used to brush only one time in the morning, and then a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years, because I haven't been to the dentist, before, So, and then they check, so then they clean, and then they ask me that I need to do more. They asked me how many times brushing I do. So I said one time, morning, and then they asked me to do brush at least twice, if not three, twice, morning and evening. At the very beginning, when I was trying to do brush, evening, I forget most time. Sometimes I remember I brush, and then for a couple of days I forget. Again, then I remember again. I try to remind myself. Even sometimes you remember, you don't want to brush, you are not so used to it, or maybe you think, maybe it's okay if I don't brush one day, it will not make much difference. Those are the excuses, And then, but slowly, I started brush. Now, it's just like morning and the evening, you don't need to remind, you don't need to push it, you just do it. And so that comes through effort, you train and effort. And that is same with our mind. That is physical habit. And same with our mental habits, the way we think, the way we think, the way we interact, the way we think and so forth, again, at the very beginning, it doesn't come naturally for most of us, unless someone from their past experience imprint, where some people can, from the very young, they can have more natural. But most people, if they don't have that strong imprint, then you have to train your mind to contemplate in certain way, to think in certain way, to reflect in certain way. And at the very beginning, it requires effort. It requires effort. If you put effort, you can generate that state of mind. But if you don't put effort, it does not arise naturally. But when you meditate, when you contemplate, when you reflect by putting effort, then you start to feel a little bit, whatever that topic, meditations, you started to feel a little bit, whether it's a compassion, whether it's a bodhicitta, whether it's a renunciations, whether it's a faith, whether it's a guru devotions, whatever different, whether it's feeling of impermanent, whatever, when you meditate, you started to feel a little bit with that kind of effort. But when you don't put effort, when you don't reflect, meditate, then you don't feel that way, But if you keep on meditating, putting effort, slowly, it required less and less effort. Slowly, it required less and less effort. And slowly, it become more and more effortless, more and more easier, and more stronger feelings. At the very beginning, even where feeling is not so strong. But slowly, as we practice more, then the feeling, whatever the compassion, bodhicitta, it becomes more stronger, more intense, more powerful, less effort. And then, and then you reach a point, then it becomes very natural, effortless, And that is where we want to reach. That is the state we want to reach. That kind of state where we don't effortlessly and naturally. But to reach that, again, it required effort at the very beginning, practice. So that is the thing, we cannot force, just as we cannot force our body. When you are trying to do some exercise, yoga, you cannot force it, Otherwise, you will dislocate your bodies, you can break down your bodies, you have to be very kind, compassionate, gentle, slowly with that, and slowly build up. And same with our mind, sometimes you can't just force your mind, but with the training through that slowly, then we can reach that point. And that is where realizations. So that is when we have the bodhisattva realizations. And when you have that, then that from that moment, we become that person become a bodhisattva, known as bodhisattva, and known as the children of the child of the Buddhas, children of the Buddha and the bodhisattvas. So so that is the. So after that, I think that is after we finish the bodhicitta, okay, relative bodhicitta, and then next come to the wisdom. The wisdom realizing the right view, correct view, that is, or the ultimate view. Before we go there, there is one caution. Maybe I can. Here the caution, Hey Gishila, last time you were saying Lama Tsongkhapa focus on Lamrim and just few deities. Can you repeat which deities those were, please? Well, not Lama Tsongkhapa, Lama Adisha, the Kadamba masters. Okay. The Kadamba masters, normally they have only 4 deities. Buddha Shakyamuni being the founder of these teachings, of the practice, both Sutra Tantras. So that was one of Buddha Shakyamuni. And then Avalokiteshvara, because of the Buddha with compassions, Avalokiteshvara. And Tara, the Buddha of activities. And then Vajrapani, the Buddha of the power or skillful means. So the only things that why I wonder why the Manjushri is not included. That is one thing why within that, because Manjushri is the Buddha we have the Buddha of compassion, then we have Buddha of course, the founder Buddha, and then Avalokiteshvara, and then the Buddha of activities, the Tara, and then Vajrapani. So I don't know exactly why the Manjushri was not included, but so those are the 4 deities, so in Kadamba traditions. And it is said, especially when personally Lama Adisha, his personal deity was a Tara, was Tara. He relied on Tara for many of his decisions, when he relied on her. So anyway, so yeah, those. And then it is said on top of those 4, then Lama Tsongkhapa added 3 highest Yoga Tantra, so that is Kadamba tradition, and Gelug is known as New Kadamba tradition in generally. Of course, now we have a different organization which is called New Kadamba tradition, but in general. And so on top of what Lama Tsong Adishas, so Adisha main teaching was Lamrim, that which he composed, the Lamb of the Path, which is the very root text of commentary by Lama Tsongkhapa. Lamrim is the root text of Lama Tsongkhapa. Lamrim is Adisha's Lamb of the Path. That is the one. And as the Lamb of the Path is the root text, and then as commentary, Lama Tsongkhapa wrote the Lamrim, great, middle, and small Lamrims, so that is the main. And so on top of that, then Lama Tsongkhapa added 3 Yoga Tantra, the Guya Samaja, Chakra Sambara, and Yamataka, And so that is the new kind of Kadamba traditions, Gelug or new Kadamba traditions. So anyway, so that, yeah. So I think maybe we clear that questions before I forget again, okay? So then coming to the view. So then, again, it starts with the first why we need to cultivate the right view, the purpose or the reason to cultivate the right view. What is why we need, why wouldn't it be enough? Wouldn't it be enough to generate renunciation and bodhicitta? Wouldn't that be enough? Why do we need to generate, on top of that, why do we need to generate the wisdom, realizing the right view or correct view? And so that with that, then Lama Tsongkhapa start with that in verse number 9. If you have that, without the wisdom realizing the ultimate reality, so ultimate reality, the correct reality, or right view and correct view, even though you have generated renunciation and mind of enlightenment, the bodhicitta, you cannot cut the root cause of cycling, the samsara. Therefore, attempt the method to realize dependent arisings. So here, when we talk all the Buddha's teachings and practice, all the Buddha's teaching and practice can be categorized into two things: wisdom and the method. The wisdom and the method. And the practice of renunciations and bodhicitta is part of the method. Part of the method. Okay? So no matter how we train in the method, no matter how we train in the method, no matter how we cultivate those realizations from the method, without the wisdom realizing the ultimate reality or truth, you cannot cut the very root of the delusions or the samsara. You cannot cut. And so without cutting the very root of samsara, neither one can be able to free one from samsara, neither one will be able to help others to free from samsara. So it is like, having bodhicitta, compassion is wonderful, is great, is wonderful and great, but it's not enough. If you want to achieve enlightenment, if you want to help others, it's not enough. It's like, you have good heart, but if you don't have the wisdom and skillful means to help someone, just having good heart is not enough. Let's say someone sick, who needs surgery, otherwise he or she might be dying immediately. And if you don't have the skill, even though you have the good heart, you want to save that person or that animal, you don't have that skill to do surgery, then you cannot really help that. You cannot really save, because you don't have the means to help, even though you have the good heart. And the same way, without the wisdom, then neither we can free ourselves from all the samsara, from all the delusions, all the root of the delusions. Neither we can be able to help others to free from the samsara and all the delusion and the cause of the samsara. So that is why one way why we need to generate the right view, the wisdom realizing the right view. Another reasons even you have generated the bodhicitta mind, if you don't have the wisdom realizing the emptiness, you can only go to certain level of the path, and you cannot move beyond that level. You can, you can achieve the first path in the Bodhisattva's path. There are 5 paths, 10 bhumis, and 10 bhumis start with the third path, from the path of seeing. You can enter the first path accumulations, but without the wisdom realizing emptiness, you cannot go further than that. Then you cannot enter the path of preparations and so forth, and all others. And that will be same even in if you are trying to, even someone who is trying to follow the path to achieve individual liberation, nirvana. Even in that path, there is 5 paths, and you can only enter the first path. And without the wisdom realizing emptiness, you cannot go beyond that first path. You cannot enter the path of preparation. So again, that is why if we want to go further than that and to achieve our spiritual goal, then you need, whether you want to, spiritual goal is individual liberation or whether it's a fully enlightenment. For both of them, you need that, And therefore, on the other hand, you have the wisdom realizing emptiness, and that is supported by the bodhicitta mind. Then you can enter, path of further, path of preparation, path of accumulation, preparation, and then path of seeing, meditation, and fully enlightenment, path of no more learning. So we can all that. So yeah, I think it was in one of the great Indian masters, not Chandrakirti, Dharmakirti. In Dharmakirti, he says, in order to destroy the very root of all the afflictive emotions, the fundamental ignorance. Okay, very root of all the delusion is that fundamental ignorance. In order to destroy the fundamental ignorance, you need a mind that contradicts that ignorance totally. That you need a mind that can contradict that ignorance. Loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind does not contradict that fundamental ignorance directly. Whereas the wisdom realizing the emptiness will contradict that directly, because that fundamental ignorance grabs and apprehends object to exist inherently, and the wisdom realizing emptiness realize that object is not inherently existent. So the mind which perceive inherently existing and the mind which perceive non-inherent existing, they contradict very much. And that can how it can destroy. And so therefore, that is why the wisdom realizing emptiness is needed. It's not enough just to have the good heart, compassion, and that. Of course, having a compassion, good heart, bodhicitta is wonderful. There's no doubt about that, This world needs that. The society needs that. The country needs that. The family needs that. We individuals all need that. But to achieve enlightenment and to help others much more meaningful, much more broader way, then we also need to have that wisdom. Without that, it is not possible. Also, without that wisdom, no matter how much strong concentration you have, again, you cannot cut the very root of the very root of all the delusion and samsara. And as I think I might have mentioned in the past, the practice of shamatha, within the shamatha, there are 8 different levels of shamatha, And those shamatha, deep meditative concentrations, are very common practice between Buddhists and non-Buddhists as well. Even the non-Buddhists, some of the earliest school of the thoughts in India that have developed, they have already developed those methods how to develop meditative concentration shamatha. And there are so many practitioners who have achieved that. And it is that Buddha himself learned many of the technique from some of the earlier teachers. And he perfected all this shamatha. Even he had perfected all the shamatha meditative concentrations, achieved all of them still he saw that he couldn't free from the samsara because he couldn't, completely destroy all the delusions and the root of the delusions. Through that shamatha, he was able to kind of subside all the delusions. So delusion does not arise as long as you are in shamatha, But once you come out of the shamatha, then again, when you encounter the different object, then delusion arises, So that was not and so then Buddha, meditated and when he asked, so teacher, is there any more other further higher practice than that? And all of them say, there's no higher practice than that. They couldn't. And so then he got in the, then he found himself, of course, from the past, imprint and all of that, So anyway, there is a story of one of the great earlier non-Buddhist masters, who have achieved those high level of shamatha. So he was in deep meditation because he had developed such a meditative concentration, shamatha. So he was able to meditate without eating, without going anywhere, just sitting there for weeks and months. He has that ability. And it is said, he saw deep meditations. So he has a long hair, like some of those sadhus, long curl hair, And then he was deep meditation. He didn't notice, there was already one mice starting to make, nest into his hair, And he was so deep meditation. He didn't notice it of that. And after some time, he came out of that meditations, deep meditations. Then he realized there was a mice nest, and he got very upset. So that is when the delusion arises, anger, upset. As long as he was in deep meditations, he was not aware, nothing disturbed him. He was in deep meditations, nothing bothered him, nothing disturbed him. But once he came out of that meditations, then when he saw his hair was being destroyed by the mouse, then he got upset. And so that is described into the sutra, the king of the concentration. There is a sutra called King of Concentration. So in that, the Buddha described about that, And therefore, in order to overcome all the delusions such as anger and attachment, ignorance, completely, whether you are in deep meditation or whether you are in not deep meditations, then we need to cut the very root of those delusions and that fundamental ignorance. And to do that, then we need to meditate on emptiness. Need to have correct understanding of emptiness and need to meditate on the emptiness. Or in other words, the ultimate reality or truth, okay? Ultimate reality. And as Buddha said in that very sutra, the only way to achieve nirvana is by cultivating that wisdom. Wisdom relies on the selflessness of person and phenomena. Without that wisdom, just by the concentration shamatha itself is not possible to achieve enlightenment. It's not possible to destroy all the afflictive emotions completely. You can only kind of subside them. also one of the, yeah, okay, maybe. Mm. So we need the both. So here, we need the both method and the wisdom. The both method and the wisdom. The method, the Buddha, Bodhisattva mind, the enlightened mind of the Bodhisattva, and the wisdom relies on the ultimate reality or truth. Need both of them. In order to have Bodhisattva, then first you need to have renunciations. In order to have Bodhisattva, first you need to have renunciations. And so that is why all three. And so, but so if we lack one of them, then we are bondage. If we have both, then there is a liberation. So in one of the sutras, in Tibetan is Timamebe Tapat Tembedo, it is called stainless, known as stainless sutras, where it says the wisdom without the method is bondage. And the wisdom that is supported by the method is liberations. In same way, the method without wisdom is bondage. And method with the wisdom or supported by the wisdom is the liberations. And in that, it clearly mentioned in that Sutta, Buddha, the important. So in kind of that, for example, wisdom without method, the bodhicitta, why it is a bondage, because still you can be in a bondage of, individual liberations and unable to achieve non-abiding nirvana, the fully enlightenment. But when that wisdom is supported bodhicitta mind, then you can achieve non-abiding nirvana, the Buddhahood. On the other hand, if you have the method, the bodhicitta mind, but if you don't have wisdom, it's still bondage because you are still in samsara. Even you have bodhicitta mind, but if you don't have the wisdom realizing emptiness, then you are still in bondage because you are in samsara. But when that bodhicitta mind is supported by the wisdom, then you can achieve fully liberations from the samsara. So that is the liberations. Mm-hmm. That is why. And then Chandrakiri also explained, in his middle way, just as the geese, the geese fly when they migrate from one place to another places by using two wings, if one of the wings is cut, they will not be able to fly and migrate and to go over the seas and oceans to migrate to wherever they need to go. But they are able to go there through the support of the two wings. In the same way, if we want to cross the ocean of samsara and migrate to the shore of non-abiding nirvana or fully enlightenment, then we need to rely on two wings to fly, the wing of method and the wing of the wisdom. And so again, Chandrakiri also by giving that example of the two wings of the birds flying, same way, that. Another reasons why we need the both wisdom and the method. Nagarjuna's, I think it's in his Precious Garland, even though I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's in Precious Garland. At the end, there is dedications. by the by the merit that I have created, may all sentient beings accumulate the collection of merit and collection of the wisdom. And through that two collections, may they be able to achieve two kayas, the Rupakaya of the form body and the wisdom body, the Dhammakayas, So again, of course, as he mentioned that, in order to achieve enlightenment and to be benefit to others, we need to have two kayas, Dharmakaya and Rupakayas. Dharmakaya is our enlightened wisdom, okay? Fully enlightened wisdom. Rupakaya is then once you achieve that fully enlightened, once you have achieved that fully enlightened wisdom, then you manifest it whatever form is helpful to other sentient beings. Because other sentient beings cannot have access to your enlightened mind directly. Okay? So how can you help and benefit others? Is by manifesting in different forms. Whatever is needed to help by manifesting in different form, inspiring others, teaching them, giving instructions, advice, teachings, or through your own action, inspiring others. And in order to inspire through your actions, inspire others by example and so forth, you have to manifest in some form where the sentient beings can see it and have access to it. And so therefore you need the Rupakaya. Rupa means form, some kind of form where sentient beings can see and have access to get the benefit. And in order to achieve those, so in other words, also it is a way of saying, in order to fulfill the two purpose, our own purpose and purpose of others, we need the two kayas. To fulfill our purpose, we need the Dharmakaya. To fulfill the purpose of others, then we need the Rupakaya. So in order to fulfill both ourselves and others' purpose, then we need the two kayas. In order to have two kayas, then you need the method of wisdom. The wisdom is the cause of the Dhammakaya wisdom, and the method is the cause of Rupakaya. So in order to achieve that fully enlightenment of two kaya, then you need to cultivate or engage into the cause that lead to that. And those two causes are the method and wisdom. If one of them lacking, then you cannot achieve two kayas. If there's no wisdom, then there is no dhammakayas. If there is no method, then there is no rupakayas. And also from that point of view, again, why we need not only just the method, the bodhicitta, but also the wisdom even from that point of view. Yeah, so so as it says, therefore attempt. So how can we develop the wisdom relaxing the ultimate reality, by relying on the method of realizing dependent arising. So here, that is the method to cultivate the wisdom realizing ultimate reality is by relying on the method of dependent arising. So again, it is a very, as Lama Tsongkhapa here said, therefore attempt the method to realize dependent arisings. So, and in many of the commentaries and many of the great masters, they say, it's a very special. Lama Tsongkhapa could have said, therefore attempt to method to have a realization of emptiness. Okay, but here he didn't use that emptiness. He used use the method to realize the dependent arisings. So because if you say emptiness, even though emptiness and dependent arisings meaning same thing, but for a lot of people who do not have correct understanding, realization at the very beginning, if Lama Tsongkhapa said, try to understand the emptiness, then it could lead to a kind of nihilism, misunderstanding, say thinking, oh, there's nothing. So first, before he explain what is emptiness, before he go further on explaining the emptiness, first he want to introduce dependent arising. Through dependent arising, when we understand what is really dependent arising, and when we understand emptiness from the point of view of dependent arising, then there's no danger to fall nihilism, to have this, to fall in the one at the extreme, nihilism, that is, there's nothing. And we don't fall into that, we don't have the danger of falling that stream of nihilism if we understand the emptiness from the point of view of dependent arising. From the point of view of dependent arising. And so that is why Lama Tsongkhapa here introduced, and sometimes dependent arisings, is known as the king of the logic, king of the reasonings, king of the logics. There are many different logics, there are many different reasonings, there are many different analyses to understand why things are selfless, why things are empty of truly existent, inherent existence, many different reasonings, many different logic, many different way of analyzing, many different way of investigations. But among all of them, by using the dependent arising is the most, it clears both extreme easily. And that is why it is called king of reasonings. Because when we say depending, there's two words, dependent arisings, okay? Or dependent origination, dependent arisings. When you hear depending, it means if something is dependent arising, that means it's dependent on something else. Do you get it? Depending means it is dependent on some other factors, cause, condition, factor, whatever. If something is depending, then it cannot be independent. Okay? If something is not independent, it cannot be inherent existence. Inherent existence, independence has same meaning here. And so therefore, by understanding it's depending, you know that it's not inherently existent, it's not independent existence. So it clears one of the extreme internalisms, thinking that things exist inherently. That has been clear by understanding depending. When it's arising, when it means arising, it means something being produced. Something is coming into existence. Okay? Something coming into existence. And so when something's coming into existence, then that's clear that there's nothing. Do you get it? So the extreme of nihilism, nothing exists, is clear because here is, when he says arising, it means there's something there. There's something there. because something coming into existence, there's something there. And so that clear this extreme of nihilism. And so thereby just the word itself, dependent arising, by when we understand the meaning of that dependent word of that dependent arising, what is the meaning of that word dependent arising, and when you use that dependent arising as a reasoning, as a logic, as a examinations to find the nature of phenomena, nature of the objects, then we are able to find ultimate nature of phenomena without falling in one of the extremes. So, so here there is Lama Tsongkhapa using this particular reasoning, and it has a great special meaning why he particularly choose this reasoning, even though there are so many different reasoning that, especially for us beginner, especially for the beginners, I think, especially those very beginner who are being exposed to the emptiness, I think explaining from dependent arising is so helpful. When it is not explained from the dependent arising, a lot of time people get confused, completely confused. They think there is nothing. They end up feeling there is nothing and feel like there is nihilism, That is why, many of the modern scholars, Western scholars, I think maybe 30, 40 years ago, 50 years, 60 years ago, when they were reading Nagarjuna's writing, when Dharma was not so well known, but they have the access to the Nagarjuna's writing, they read it, they all thought he was nihilism. They all thought Nagarjuna was nihilism. Because in most of his writing, his writing are mostly negating what is not existence, and therefore explaining the emptiness more from the negation point of view, what it is not. And so, because even though you find in his writing explaining that emptiness from the point of a dependent arising, but you find only one or two verses here and there. Most of them, whole writing is negations. And so then that is where they have misunderstanding, misunderstanding. I think maybe there is less misunderstanding now because there is much more. After the Dharma came, many other teachers came, and then they were exposed, and then, and now when they read if they read closely, now they know actually it is not just the negations, And so I think that, and so that is where, so if those scholars, some of the most brightest, those scholars are some of the bright, mind. If they get confused, of course, it's easy to get confused for the ordinary people as well, And so therefore, that is why Lama Tsongkhapa here, explaining from the dependent arising, it has a really, really special meanings. Great meaning and great point in doing that. And then I think, I don't know, maybe because, let me see, there's one question there. Who were some of the Buddha's teachers for meditations? Yeah, I don't remember the name of those teachers, but like at the very beginning, while he was still in palace, when he was still prince, he was given, he had all the trainers, guidance, in terms of body, physical as well as mental. So he had teachers, some of teachers that taught him the religions or the spiritual path of that time. And he learned everything from that teachers, and the teacher had nothing to teach anymore because he have learned everything, and through practice he perfected that. And then, you know, he said, I don't have any more to teach. Then again, he sent to another higher teachers. And again, he went to that higher teachers, and then he teach them again how to develop the shamatha. He already developed shamatha, but higher level, as I mentioned, there are 8 different type of shamatha, you know. And so higher level of shamatha he developed. And then again, that teacher says, that is all after Buddha learn and practice and develop. And then again, he said, is there any more? He said, there's no more for me to teach. And again, you know, he wanted to do more. And then again, that teacher lead to another teacher. That is the highest level of teacher at that time, in that time, and who has reached the highest level of the meditative concentration shamatha, the shamatha of the peak of the samsara, shamatha known as the peak of the samsara. And you know, and so again, there again, Buddha went there and again learned with him, and again meditated. Again, he developed that concentrations, the highest level concentration that can be developed. And again, he asked the teachers, is there anything, can you teach again something more than that? And the teacher said, that's the highest level that you can, you know, and there's nothing more than that. And so those are the kind of the things that, yeah. So I don't remember the name of each of those different teachers of at that time. Then there is one, Gishila, can you share in Chandagiri Gish teacher? Okay. So I think maybe today, maybe we'll stop here, and maybe next week we'll start from the maybe about the dependent arisings, and then further next verses. Okay. So we can do the dedications. Yeah. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Jigden kamde pende malu pa kangle chungwe sambe yishi no kadin chungme tenzin gyatso la sowa deso tuje lundu sho. Tuzo changshin jamgen jawe tenzin jong pewe kunso to borozu chosun kuwe le ma tutu pa da so du je gwendu shapten sho. Aba nu cho sa de do wa la ja wa kun le la be tin jen je la ba sam shin cho de re ro su jen la ka den ten be kyu sha so. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Geshe-la. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
Geshe-la. So wonderful to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm also very happy to see all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Hello, Laura. Happy